Have you ever witnessed a mother slap her own daughter at a family wedding in front of 100 guests? No? So imagine this. You're at your sister's wedding. 200 guests. Judges, lawyers, Boston's elite, all watching. And your mother just handed you a stack of documents on stage, demanding you sign over your $2 million penthouse as a wedding gift to your sister. You say no. And her palm connects with your face so hard your earring flies across the marble floor. That was my reality. March 15th, 2024. They expected me to cry, to apologize, to surrender like I always had. Instead, I picked up my earring, walked out, and made one phone call. 1 hour later, a woman walked into that reception. When my mother saw who it was, she started screaming because the person she told everyone was senile and gone had just arrived with a lawyer and proof of everything she'd been hiding. Before I continue, please like and subscribe, but only if this story truly resonates with you. Now let me take you back 3 years to where this all began. The call came on a Tuesday evening in March 2021. I was sitting in my studio apartment in Somerville, eating leftover pad thai and reviewing blueprints for a client's kitchen renovation, when my grandmother's name lit up my phone screen. "Paige, sweetheart," Eleanor Harrison said, her voice steady as it had always been. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen carefully." My grandmother had been a professor at Harvard Law School for 31 years before retiring. She didn't waste words. So when she told me she was updating her will and leaving me the penthouse at 150 Seaport Boulevard, the one she'd purchased in 2015 for $1.8 million, now valued at over $2 million, I set down my chopsticks and listened. "Why me?" I asked. Not because I didn't want it, because I genuinely didn't understand. "Because you're the only one who visits," she said simply. "Every Sunday for 10 years, Paige, while your mother sends Christmas cards and your sister sends nothing at all. You bring me tulips because you remember they're my favorite. You sit with me when I have nothing interesting to say." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Grandma, the paperwork will be finalized next month. Marcus Webb is handling everything. He's been my attorney for 20 years. She paused. "Your mother will not be pleased." That, as it turned out, was the understatement of the decade. The news leaked to my family within weeks. I still don't know how. Maybe someone at Marcus's firm mentioned it to someone who knew someone. Boston's legal community is smaller than people think. All I know is that by April 2021, my mother had organized what she called a family discussion at her $4 million home in Beacon Hill. I remember walking into that living room and seeing the way they were all seated. My father Richard in his leather armchair, my mother Victoria on the settee, my sister Madison perched on the arm of the couch like she was posing for a photograph. They'd arranged themselves like a tribunal. "Paige." My mother's voice was honey over broken glass. "We need to talk about your grandmother's condition." "Her condition?" I sat down on the only empty seat, a straight-back chair that faced all three of them. "She seems fine to me." "She's clearly not thinking straight." Victoria crossed her legs, her Cartier bracelet catching the light. "Leaving a $2 million property to one grandchild? Excluding everyone else? That's not the behavior of a rational woman." "She's not excluding anyone," I said. "She's giving me something she wants me to have. That's her right." Madison let out a small, theatrical sob. "This is so unfair. I've always loved Grandma. I just don't have time to visit like you do. I have a career. I have a life." "You have a trust fund and a fiancé with a yacht," I thought, but didn't say. "The fair thing to do," my father spoke for the first time, his voice measured in that way attorneys cultivate, "would be for you to decline the inheritance, or at least agree to sell the property and split the proceeds equally among family members." I stared at him, Richard Harrison, who hadn't asked me a single question about my life in years. Richard Harrison, who'd missed my college graduation because of a scheduling conflict that turned out to be a golf tournament. That Richard Harrison was now telling me what would be fair. "I'm not declining anything," I said. "And I'm not selling anything." Grandma made this decision because she wanted to. If you have a problem with it, talk to her. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Victoria's smile vanished. Then I hope you're prepared, she said, for the consequences of being so selfish. The consequences came swiftly. By summer 2021, I had been quietly removed from the family text chain. I learned about Madison's engagement party through an Instagram post, a photo of her surrounded by our cousins, champagne glasses raised, at a venue I recognized as the Boston Harbor Hotel. The caption read, "Future Mrs. Caldwell," with 3 diamond emojis. No one had told me. No one had invited me. When I asked my mother about it, she said, "Oh, we assumed you wouldn't want to come. You've been so busy with your little decorating business." My little decorating business was a licensed interior design studio with 12 active clients and revenue that had doubled in the past year. But to Victoria Harrison, anything that wasn't a law degree or a wealthy husband was just a hobby. The worst part wasn't the exclusion, it was what came with it. The stories Victoria began telling anyone who would listen. Paige manipulated my mother, I overheard her say at a neighborhood gathering I'd shown up to uninvited. Visited her constantly, turned her against the family. You know how vulnerable elderly people can be. She painted me as a predator, a schemer, the ungrateful daughter who'd exploited a confused old woman for profit. And through all of it, I never once corrected her publicly. I never made a scene. I thought if I stayed quiet, if I just kept my head down, eventually the storm would pass. I didn't understand yet that silence was exactly what she was counting on. What I also didn't understand was why Grandma Eleanor had moved into Brookhaven Senior Living in late 2021, a luxury facility in Wellesley that cost $12,000 a month. She told me she wanted peace and quiet. She told me she was tired of the drama. But sometimes when I visited her on Sundays, I caught something in her eyes, a flicker of something that looked almost like fear. "Grandma," I asked once, "did something happen? Between you and Mom?" She looked out the window at the manicured gardens for a long moment. "Some things are better left alone," she finally said. "At least for now." I let it go. I shouldn't have. 3 years would pass before I understood what she was hiding, and why she'd chosen to hide it. December 2023. 3 months before the wedding that would change everything. I was in my studio on a Friday afternoon, reviewing fabric samples for a Brookline townhouse project, when the mail arrived. Among the invoices and catalogs was an envelope of heavy cream cardstock, my name written in calligraphy so elaborate, it took me a moment to decipher it. Inside was an invitation. Madison's wedding, March 15th, 2024. The Fairmont Copley Plaza. Black tie. For a full minute, I just stared at it. After 2 years of being treated like a ghost, no holidays, no birthdays, no casual texts, they were inviting me to the wedding? My phone rang that same evening. "Mother." "Paige, darling." Victoria's voice was warm, almost affectionate. I hadn't heard that tone since before the inheritance news broke. "Did you receive Madison's invitation?" "I did." "Wonderful. You know, this wedding is going to be such a beautiful opportunity for our family to heal, to move forward." She paused meaningfully. "To show everyone that the Harrisons are united." I waited. "I've been thinking," she continued. And there it was, the real reason for the call. This would be the perfect time to revisit our conversation about the penthouse. Madison and Tyler will need a place to live after the honeymoon, somewhere appropriate for a young couple starting their life together. I closed my eyes. Of course, the invitation wasn't an olive branch, it was bait. "Mom, the penthouse is mine. Grandma left it to me, that hasn't changed." "Nothing has to change, sweetheart. You could simply transfer the property as a wedding gift. Think of how generous that would look. Think of how proud Grandma would be to see you supporting your sister." The audacity of it took my breath away. Using my grandmother, the woman who had specifically chosen to give me that apartment, as an argument for why I should give it away. "I'm not transferring anything." "Paige." The warmth evaporated. Madison deserves a proper start. She's marrying into the Caldwell family. Do you understand what that means? Tyler's father is a managing partner at Ropes and Gray. They'll be entertaining. They'll be hosting. They need a home that reflects their status. Then Tyler's father can buy them one. Silence stretched between us. When Victoria spoke again, her voice was ice. I expect you to think carefully about this before the wedding, and I expect you to make the right choice. She hung up. I sat in my studio as the winter sun set, casting long shadows across my drafting table. I understood exactly what was at stake now. If I went to that wedding and refused again, in front of everyone Victoria had spent decades cultivating relationships with, she would make me pay. She would tell every guest that I was the selfish, ungrateful daughter who'd ruined her sister's special day. She would weaponize the entire Boston legal establishment against me. My reputation, my business, my future client referrals, so many of which came from word of mouth in exactly those circles. But if I didn't go, that would be its own kind of surrender, proof that I was too ashamed to show my face, proof that I had something to hide. I considered skipping it. I really did. But something in me refused. I had done nothing wrong. I had accepted a gift from someone who loved me. I would not be made to feel like a criminal for it. I RSVP'd yes. 1 week before the wedding, my phone rang at 7 in the morning. Grandma Eleanor. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice carrying that particular urgency I'd only heard a handful of times in my life. "I need you to listen carefully." "I'm listening. If something happens at that wedding, and I believe something will, I want you to call Marcus Webb immediately. The number is 617-555-0142. Can you write that down?" I grabbed a pen. "Grandma, what are you talking about? What's going to happen?" "Your mother thinks I don't know what she's planning. She forgets that I was practicing law before she was born." Eleanor's voice was steady, but I heard the steel beneath it. "I've prepared everything, Paige. Marcus has all the documents. If you need them, they're ready." "Documents? What documents?" "Just remember the number. And remember," she paused, "that I love you. Whatever happens, I love you." She hung up before I could ask anything more. I saved Marcus Webb's number in my phone, not understanding why my hands were shaking. I wouldn't understand until I walked through the doors of the Fairmont Copley Plaza and saw what was waiting for me. March 15th, 2024, 5:00 p.m. The Fairmont Copley Plaza rose above Copley Square like a monument to old money and older traditions. I'd driven past it hundreds of times in my life, but walking through those gilded doors as a guest, as a Harrison, felt different. It felt like walking into enemy territory. The ballroom was breathtaking. White orchids cascaded from crystal chandeliers. A 12-piece jazz ensemble played Gershwin in the corner. Waiters in black ties circulated with champagne flutes and canapes on silver trays. Every detail screamed expense, taste, and Victoria Harrison's personal touch. 127 guests. I'd counted the chairs during cocktail hour. Lawyers, doctors, investment bankers, old Boston families whose names appeared on hospital wings and university buildings. These were the people my mother had spent 3 decades impressing. Her audience, her witnesses. I wore a navy blue dress, elegant but not attention-seeking. I had debated for hours about what to wear, knowing that anything too expensive would be called showing off the penthouse money, and anything too simple would be embarrassing the family. In the end, I chose something that simply felt like me. Richard found me near the ice sculpture. A swan, naturally, 10 minutes after I arrived. "Paige?" My father nodded, his eyes sliding past me like I was a piece of furniture he was trying not to bump into. "Glad you could make it." "Dad." We stood in silence. After 32 years, we had nothing to say to each other. Madison appeared in a cloud of white tulle and Swarovski crystals, her veil trailing behind her like a promise of the life she'd always believed she deserved. She hugged me, arms circling but not quite touching, the way you'd embrace a stranger at a networking event. Paige, you came. Her smile was camera ready. Perfect teeth, perfect makeup, perfect performance. Of course I came. You're my sister. She pulled back, and her expression shifted. Subtle, calculating. Did you bring the paperwork? I blinked. What paperwork? Mom said you'd have the transfer documents ready by today. Madison's voice was light, almost playful, but her eyes were hard. For the penthouse, our wedding gift. So this was it. They'd already decided among themselves that I would comply. The invitation, the phone call, the reconciliation theater, all of it was just a prelude to this moment. Madison, there are no transfer documents. What do you mean? I mean the penthouse is mine. It's not a gift. It's not up for discussion. Her perfect smile flickered. But Mom said, I don't know what Mom told you. I kept my voice low, steady. But I'm not signing anything. Not today. Not ever. Madison's jaw tightened. For a moment, she looked exactly like Victoria, the same flash of fury barely contained. You know, Tyler and I were planning to move in after the honeymoon. We already told the realtor we wouldn't need the condo in Back Bay. We already told everyone. You told everyone about an apartment that doesn't belong to you. It should belong to us. Her voice rose slightly. You don't even need it. You live in that little place in Somerville. You don't entertain. You don't have anyone to impress. What's the point of you having a $2 million penthouse? The point. What was the point of me having anything nice, anything valuable, anything that suggested I might matter as much as she did? I'd spent my whole life being asked that question in different ways. The point, I said quietly, is that Grandma wanted me to have it, and her wishes matter more than your real estate plans. Madison stared at me. Then she leaned in close, her bridal perfume overwhelming. Mom's going to handle this, she whispered. And when she does, don't say I didn't warn you. She swept away toward a group of bridesmaids, leaving me standing alone by the melting swan. I moved toward the bar, needing something to steady my nerves. But before I could order, a woman in a cream Chanel suit stepped into my path. I recognized her, Patricia Holloway, one of Victoria's tennis partners and the wife of a federal judge. You're Paige, aren't you? Patricia's smile didn't reach her eyes. Victoria's mentioned you. I bet she has. I heard you're holding on to some property for your grandmother, Patricia continued. That's very responsible of you. Will you be selling it soon? There it was, the narrative Victoria had been spinning. I wasn't the heir. I was the caretaker, the temporary custodian of assets that would eventually be distributed properly. Actually, I said, I live there. Patricia's eyebrows rose. Oh, I thought, well, never mind what I thought. She excused herself quickly, disappearing into the crowd. I stood alone in that sea of silk and judgment, understanding finally what I was up against. Victoria had been preparing this battlefield for years. Every conversation, every social event, every carefully placed comment, all of it was groundwork. And tonight, she intended to collect. I just didn't know yet how far she was willing to go. I escaped to the balcony. The March air was cold enough to bite, but after the suffocating warmth of the ballroom, I welcomed it. I leaned against the stone railing, looking out over Copley Square, trying to slow my racing heartbeat. That's when my phone buzzed. Grandma Eleanor. I answered immediately. Hello? My dear girl. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. Tell me what's happening. I glanced through the glass doors at the glittering crowd inside. How do you know something's happening? Because I know my daughter. A pause. Victoria has been planning something for weeks. She's been making phone calls, gathering people, building her case. She thinks I don't know because I'm locked away in my nursing home. The disdain in Eleanor's voice was palpable. She forgets that I have friends who actually like me. I almost laughed. Almost. What is she planning? I don't know exactly, but I know it will happen tonight while she has her audience. That's how Victoria operates. She needs witnesses. She needs people to validate her. Eleanor's voice softened. Paige, do you remember the number I gave you? Marcus Webb's number? I have it saved. If anything happens, Anything at all, call him immediately. He's expecting your call. He has everything ready. I pressed my back against the cold stone. Grandma, what is everything? What are you not telling me? Silence stretched across the line. 6 months ago, Eleanor finally said, your friend Daniel came to visit me. Daniel Reeves. We'd been friends since freshman year at BU. He was a reporter now, working the investigative desk at the Boston Globe. He'd mentioned a few months back that he was looking into some irregular real estate transactions in the area, but I hadn't connected it to anything specific. He came to visit you? Why? Because he found something strange, a property sale in 2020, a house in Cape Cod that belonged to me, a house I never sold. My breath caught. What do you mean you never sold it? I mean exactly that. Your mother sold it. For $875,000. She forged my signature on the documents. The world tilted slightly. I gripped the railing. Grandma? I didn't want to believe it either. That's why I hired experts. A company called Forensic Document Services, right here in Boston. They analyzed the signatures. The probability of forgery was 98.7%. 98.7%. That wasn't doubt. That was certainty. Why didn't you tell me? My voice came out hoarse. Why didn't you go to the police? Because she's my daughter. Eleanor's voice cracked just slightly before she steadied it. Because I still hope, that there might be some explanation I don't understand. Some reason that isn't what it looks like. But we both knew. We both knew there wasn't. That's why you moved to Brookhaven, I said, understanding flooding through me. Not because you wanted peace and quiet, because you couldn't stand being around her. I couldn't trust her, Paige, and I couldn't prove anything without destroying everything. So I removed myself. I protected what I could protect, the penthouse, my remaining assets, and I waited. For what? For Victoria to make a mistake. Eleanor's voice hardened. Tonight might be that mistake. If she pushes too far, if she exposes herself publicly, then Marcus has everything he needs to respond. The forensic report, the original transaction documents, witnesses who saw me during the time I supposedly signed those papers. I was in the hospital with a broken hip. I couldn't have signed anything. I closed my eyes, absorbing the weight of it all. My mother hadn't just tried to manipulate me. She'd stolen from her own mother. She'd committed fraud. And she'd let Grandma Eleanor take the blame for not being rational when she'd changed her will. Paige! Eleanor's voice pulled me back. I'm not telling you this to make you hate your mother. I'm telling you because you need to understand what you're dealing with. And you need to know that if she corners you tonight, you're not alone. You have never been alone. I heard the jazz band start up again inside, a swing number that felt grotesquely cheerful. What do you want me to do? Whatever happens, don't sign anything. And if it goes badly, if she pushes you beyond what you can bear, call Marcus. Tell him the documents are needed. He'll know what to do. And you? A pause. When Eleanor spoke again, I could hear the smile in her voice. If Marcus calls me, I'll be there within the hour. I've been waiting 3 years for this, darling. I'm not going to miss it. She hung up. I stood on that balcony for a long moment, cold wind whipping my hair. Then I straightened my shoulders, smoothed my dress, and walked back into the ballroom. I was ready, or at least, I thought I was. I'm going to pause here for a moment, because I know some of you watching this have been in situations like mine, where you're surrounded by people who are supposed to love you, but instead they make you feel small. If this story is hitting close to home, let me know in the comments. Should I have walked out right then? Or was I right to stay and face what was coming? Your answers mean more to me than you know. Now let me tell you what happened next. 7:30 p.m. Dinner had been served and cleared. The toasts had been made. Richard's stiff, perfunctory speech about legacy and family values. Tyler's father waxing poetic about the merger of two great Boston families. Madison's maid of honor, telling a story about their sorority days that made everyone laugh politely. I sat at table 14, near the back of the ballroom, with a collection of distant cousins and family friends who seemed unsure why I was there. Fine by me, I wanted to be invisible. But Victoria Harrison had other plans. The clink of metal against crystal cut through the room's chatter. My mother stood at the head table, champagne flute in hand, microphone in the other. Her smile was radiant, her Valentino gown glittered under the chandeliers. "If I could have everyone's attention," she said, "I'd like to take a moment for something very special, a family tradition that Madison has asked me to facilitate." I felt the first prickle of warning at the base of my spine. As many of you know, the Harrison family believes in taking care of each other. We support each other. We make sacrifices for each other. Victoria's eyes swept the room, landing briefly on me before moving on. And tonight, in the spirit of that love, I'd like to invite my eldest daughter, Paige, to join me up here. 127 pairs of eyes turned toward table 14. I didn't move. I couldn't move. "Paige, sweetheart?" Victoria's voice carried a note of gentle encouragement that I knew was performance. "Come on up, honey. Don't be shy." What choice did I have? If I refused, I would be the difficult one, the ungrateful one, the sister who ruined Madison's wedding with her stubbornness. I stood. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else as I walked through the maze of tables, past the whispered comments and curious stares, up to the raised platform where my mother waited with her serpent's smile. "There she is." Victoria put an arm around my shoulders, a gesture of affection for the audience, a grip of control for me. "Now, everyone, Paige has been holding on to something very precious. Our mother, my mother, left her a beautiful penthouse apartment in the Seaport district. $2.1 million in value, quite an inheritance." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I saw Patricia Holloway nod knowingly. "Paige has been keeping it safe," Victoria continued, "waiting for just the right moment to share it with the family. And what better moment than this, Madison's wedding day, the start of her new life with Tyler." She produced a folder from somewhere, I hadn't even seen her holding it, and opened it to reveal a thick stack of legal documents. Transfer of deed, quitclaim agreement. My name already typed in the signature lines. All Paige needs to do is sign, and this incredible gift will help Madison and Tyler start their marriage in a home that truly reflects their future. The room actually applauded. They applauded, like this was a heartwarming moment. Like I was about to perform an act of sisterly love, not be publicly coerced into giving away my inheritance. "Mom." My voice was quiet but steady. "I'm not signing this." Victoria's smile didn't waver. "Don't be nervous, sweetheart. It's just paperwork." "It's not just paperwork. It's the apartment Grandma Eleanor left to me. Not to Madison, not to the family, to me." The applause died. The silence that replaced it was deafening. "Paige." Victoria's grip on my shoulder tightened. Her voice dropped, but the microphone still carried it. "Let's not make this difficult. I'm not making it anything. I'm telling you no." Madison appeared at the edge of the platform, her face a mask of wounded innocence. "Paige, you're really going to do this? On my wedding day?" "Madison, I didn't ask to be called up here. I didn't ask to be put on display. You all set this up without even asking me." "Because we knew you'd be selfish," Madison spat. "We knew you'd choose that stupid apartment over your own family." "The apartment isn't stupid when you want to live in it." Tyler's father coughed uncomfortably. A waiter near the kitchen doors looked frozen in place, tray suspended in air. This was not the elegant evening anyone had envisioned. Victoria's composure finally cracked. Her face reddened. Her voice rose. "You ungrateful child." The microphone amplified every syllable. "After everything we've done for you, after we raised you, educated you, supported your little business, you can't do this one thing for your sister? You didn't support my business, you've never even been to my studio, and you didn't raise me. Grandma did, every summer, while you were at conferences and galas and anywhere else that wasn't home. Gasps scattered through the audience. I'd said too much, I knew it, but I couldn't stop. The penthouse is mine because Grandma wanted me to have it, because I was there, because I cared. And no amount of public humiliation is going to change that. Victoria's hand moved so fast I didn't see it coming. The slap connected with my left cheek, hard enough to snap my head sideways. My silver earring, the one Grandma Eleanor had given me for my 30th birthday, flew off my ear and bounced across the marble floor with a sound like a small bell. The room went absolutely silent. For a moment, I stood perfectly still. My cheek burned, my vision blurred. I could feel every eye in that ballroom boring into me, waiting to see what I would do. What I did was breathe. I bent down. I picked up the earring. It was slightly bent but not broken. I straightened it carefully, methodically, and put it back on my ear. Then I looked at my mother. "That's the last time you touch me," I said. My voice didn't shake. I was proud of that. I turned and walked off the platform, through the tables, past the whispers and the stares and the jazz band that had stopped playing mid-note, out the double doors of the ballroom and into the lobby. I didn't run. I didn't cry. I found a quiet corner near the concierge desk, pulled out my phone, and dialed the number I'd saved a week ago. It rang once. Marcus Webb's office. "This is Paige Harrison," I said. My voice was calm, steady, certain. "Please tell my grandmother that the documents are needed." "Understood, Miss Harrison. She'll be there within the hour." I hung up, and then I sat down on a velvet bench, touched my stinging cheek, and waited. 1 hour, that's all I needed. 1 hour until everything changed. 8:45 p.m. I was still on that velvet bench when the main doors of the Fairmont Copley Plaza opened and my grandmother walked in. Eleanor Harrison was 78 years old. She moved with a cane now, her gait slower than I remembered from my childhood. But everything else about her radiated the same formidable presence that had made her one of the most respected professors at Harvard Law for 3 decades. She wore a gray cashmere coat over a simple black dress. Her silver hair was pinned back elegantly, and beside her walked Marcus Webb, mid-40s, wire-rimmed glasses, charcoal suit, carrying a leather briefcase that looked like it contained the weight of the world. "Grandma." I stood up, and for a moment my composure cracked. "You came." She crossed the lobby and took my face in her hands, examining my cheek with eyes that missed nothing. "She hit you." "Yes." Eleanor's jaw tightened. Then she kissed my forehead, gently, the way she had when I was a child and had fallen off my bicycle. "Then let's finish this," she said. We walked into the ballroom together. The wedding was in chaos, clusters of guests huddled in conversation, their champagne forgotten. Madison was crying, actually crying this time, while Tyler and his parents hovered nearby, looking mortified. Victoria stood near the head table, gesturing emphatically to Richard, who seemed to be trying to calm her down. No one noticed us at first. Then someone gasped. Then someone else. And then Victoria turned and saw her mother walking toward her across the marble floor. "Mom?" The word came out strangled. Victoria's face went white. "What are you? How are you?" "I'm here for my granddaughter's wedding," Eleanor said. Her voice carried across the suddenly silent room. "I wasn't invited, of course, but I decided to come anyway. I hope Madison doesn't mind." Madison, mascara streaming down her cheeks, could only stare. "What is this?" Victoria's voice rose. "What are you doing here?" "I'm doing what I should have done 3 years ago." Eleanor stopped about 10 feet from her daughter, close enough for everyone to hear. "I'm telling the truth." She turned to face the assembled guests. 127 people, many of them lawyers and judges and professionals, who understood exactly what was about to happen. "My name is Eleanor Harrison. I was a professor of law at Harvard for 31 years. I am of sound mind, and I am here to confirm that the penthouse at 150 Seaport Boulevard, the property my daughter has been publicly demanding my granddaughter surrender, was left to Paige Harrison in my will, dated June 14, 2019. That will is legal, valid, and enforceable. There are no other claims to that property. Marcus Webb opened his briefcase and withdrew a document. This is a certified copy of Mrs. Harrison's will, notarized and filed with the Suffolk County Probate Court. I've been her attorney for 23 years and can attest to its authenticity. Victoria's face contorted. This is absurd. Mother, you're confused. You don't understand what you're saying. I understand perfectly. Eleanor's voice was ice. What you don't understand is that I've been watching you. For 3 years I've been watching. She nodded to Marcus, who withdrew a second set of documents. These are transaction records for a property in Cape Cod, a property that was deeded in my name until September 12, 2020, when it was sold for $875,000. The room went completely silent. I could hear the ice melting in abandoned champagne buckets. I did not sell that property, Eleanor continued. I could not have sold that property. I was in Massachusetts General Hospital for 6 weeks that fall, recovering from a broken hip. I signed nothing. I authorized nothing. Victoria's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Marcus produced a third document. This is a forensic analysis report from Forensic Document Services, a certified firm specializing in handwriting analysis. They examined the signature on the Cape Cod sale documents against authentic samples of Mrs. Harrison's handwriting. He turned to the room, his voice carrying the weight of courtroom authority. Their conclusion? The signature is inconsistent with Mrs. Harrison's authentic hand. Probability of forgery, 98.7%. Murmurs erupted through the ballroom. I saw Tyler's father, the managing partner at Ropes and Gray, exchange a significant look with another attorney near the bar. You're lying, Victoria's voice cracked. This is all fabricated. You're senile, Mother. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm sharp enough to hire experts, Eleanor replied. I'm sharp enough to preserve evidence. And I'm sharp enough to have forwarded this entire file to the Suffolk County District Attorney's office last week. The color drained completely from Victoria's face. You didn't? Forgery and fraud, Victoria. Up to 5 years in prison under Massachusetts law. Eleanor's voice was almost gentle now, the same tone she'd once used to explain complex legal concepts to first-year students. I didn't want to believe my own daughter could do this. I gave you 3 years to confess, to make it right. But instead, you spent those years slandering my granddaughter, calling her a manipulator, calling me senile, trying to steal her inheritance the same way you stole my property. Victoria spun to face Richard. Richard, say something. Stop this. Richard Harrison, who had stood silently through everything, took a step backward. I didn't know, he said. His voice was flat, empty. I didn't know about the Cape Cod house. You signed the transfer, Victoria shrieked. You were there. I signed what you told me to sign. I didn't know it was forged. The room watched in horrified fascination as 35 years of marriage disintegrated in real time. Madison finally spoke, her voice small and broken. Mom, what is Grandma talking about? Victoria didn't answer. She couldn't answer. She stood in the center of her own carefully constructed stage, her perfect wedding, her perfect audience, and everything was falling apart. Eleanor turned to me. Her eyes were tired, sad, but resolute. Paige, I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I'm sorry I waited so long. It's okay, Grandma. I took her hand. I understand. She squeezed my fingers. Then she looked at Victoria one last time. You lost me the day I discovered what you'd done. Tonight, everyone else just got to see the truth. She paused. I hope someday you find it in yourself to take responsibility, but I won't hold my breath. She turned toward the exit. I walked beside her. Behind us, I heard Victoria start screaming. Incoherent denials, accusations, demands that someone do something. I heard Tyler's parents say something sharp and final to Madison. I heard the murmur of the crowd crescendo into a roar of gossip and speculation, but I didn't look back. Not once. I need to pause here for a second. When I walked out of that ballroom with my grandmother, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I wasn't thinking about winning. I was just thinking about how much time we'd lost, and how grateful I was that we still had some left. If you've ever had someone in your life who believed in you when no one else did, drop their name in the comments. They deserve to be celebrated. And if you want to hear how this all played out, make sure you're subscribed. Back to the story. We made it to the lobby before Tyler caught up with us. I heard his footsteps first, the quick, sharp click of expensive dress shoes on marble. I turned, expecting anger, maybe threats. What I saw instead was calculation. Mrs. Harrison, Tyler Caldwell addressed my grandmother directly, not even glancing at me. I think we should talk about this privately. There may be some misunderstandings that can be cleared up. Eleanor regarded him with the same expression she probably used on particularly dim-witted law students. There are no misunderstandings, Mr. Caldwell. But surely the whole Cape Cod situation, families have disputes. Paperwork gets complicated. If we could just sit down with the lawyers. The paperwork was forged. My daughter committed fraud. Those aren't disputes, they're crimes. Tyler shifted his weight, and I watched his mask slip. Underneath the polished veneer, I glimpsed something desperate. The penthouse, then. Madison mentioned that you might be reconsidering your will. Given the circumstances, the wedding, the new family, perhaps there's a way to… Mr. Caldwell. Eleanor's voice cut like surgical steel. I'm not reconsidering anything. The penthouse belongs to Paige. It will continue to belong to Paige. And if you're asking whether I'll give my remaining assets to a granddaughter who just married a man willing to beg at a ballroom door, the answer is no. Tyler's face reddened. For a moment, I thought he might say something ugly. Instead, Eleanor smiled. That particular smile that made courtroom attorneys nervous. You married the wrong Harrison, young man. And frankly, given what I've seen of your character tonight, Madison is welcome to you. She turned away from him without another word. Marcus Webb stepped forward, blocking Tyler's path. I'd advise you to return to your wedding, Mr. Caldwell. Anything you say now could be relevant to ongoing investigations. Tyler Caldwell, son of a managing partner at one of Boston's most prestigious law firms, suddenly looked very young and very scared. He retreated without another word. We stepped out into the cold March night. The air smelled like impending rain, and the street lights cast golden pools on the cobblestones of Copley Square. Grandma, I said, my voice thick, I'm so sorry about the wedding, about the scene, about all of it. She patted my arm. Don't be sorry. I've been waiting 3 years to say those things. It felt wonderful. Despite everything, I laughed. It came out raw and broken, but it was real. What happens now? Marcus answered, his voice measured and professional. The district attorney's office will proceed with their investigation. Mrs. Harrison has provided substantial documentation. Whether charges are filed will depend on their review, but the evidence is compelling. And Victoria? Eleanor's face softened with something that might have been grief, or might have been relief. It was hard to tell. That's up to the courts now. I've done what I needed to do. The rest is out of my hands. I thought about my mother, still in that ballroom, surrounded by the people she'd spent her life trying to impress, watching everything she'd built crumble. Part of me felt a savage satisfaction, but a larger part just felt tired. I'm not doing this for revenge, I said, though I wasn't sure if I was telling them or myself. I'm not doing it to punish her. No, Eleanor agreed. You're doing it because some things can't be allowed to continue. Some lies can't be permitted to stand. She looked at me with those sharp, knowing eyes. There's no cruelty in telling the truth, Paige. There's only clarity. A town car pulled up to the curb. Marcus had arranged it while we were inside. I should get your grandmother back to Brookhaven, he said. It's been a long evening. Eleanor waved a dismissive hand. I'm not fragile, Marcus, but yes, I am tired. She turned to me. Come visit tomorrow. We have a great deal to talk about. And I want to hear how your design business is going. Really hear, not the polished version you give me. I'll be there. She hugged me. A real hug this time, not the performative embrace Victoria had given me on that stage. I held on longer than I probably should have. I love you, my sweet girl, she murmured. I love you too, Grandma. She climbed into the car with Marcus's assistance. I watched as it pulled away, disappearing into the Boston night. I stood alone on the sidewalk for a long time. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel Reeves. Just saw the Globe's legal beat guy tweet something cryptic about a prominent Boston attorney. Was that? I typed back. I'll explain later. Thank you for everything. Another text. This one from a number I didn't recognize. Paige. It's Jennifer Thompson from Becker Legal. We were at the wedding. I owe you an apology. I believed things I shouldn't have. If you're ever interested in discussing design work for our new office, please call me. I stared at the screen. Jennifer Thompson. One of the women I'd seen whispering with Patricia Holloway earlier that evening. Now offering me business. I wasn't sure if I'd call her, but I saved the number. Then I put my phone away, pulled my coat tighter against the cold, and walked toward the parking garage. For the first time in 3 years, I felt like I could breathe. The fallout was swift and measured. 2 weeks after the wedding, Victoria Harrison was summoned to the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office for questioning regarding the Cape Cod property sale. The interview lasted 4 hours. When she emerged, according to what Marcus later told me, she looked 10 years older. Her attorney, a colleague from her tennis club who'd originally agreed to represent her, withdrew from the case within days, citing conflict of interest. The real reason, I suspected, was that he'd seen the evidence and wanted nothing to do with a losing battle. Or perhaps he'd heard from enough mutual friends that continuing to represent Victoria would damage his own standing in Boston's legal community. My father moved to a hotel on March 28th, the Ritz-Carlton, because even in crisis, Richard Harrison maintained appearances. He released a statement through a family friend stating that he was seeking space to process recent revelations and had no prior knowledge of any improper transactions. Whether anyone believed him was another matter. His signature was on the transfer documents alongside Victoria's. Claiming ignorance only worked if people were inclined to give you the benefit of the doubt, and after 30 years of standing silently beside his wife, Richard had used up most of his goodwill. Madison and Tyler postponed their honeymoon indefinitely. I heard from a cousin that Tyler's parents had concerns about the financial entanglement and wanted their son's legal exposure clarified before the couple traveled internationally. The dream of moving into my penthouse was, of course, dead. The social consequences unfolded more quietly, but with devastating precision. On April 3rd, Victoria received an email from Partners for Justice, the charity organization whose annual gala she'd co-chaired for 17 years. The subject line read, "Your invitation status has been updated." The body was brief and corporate. Due to circumstances requiring legal resolution, her involvement in the upcoming gala was under review pending further developments. Translation: she was disinvited. The Boston Bar Association opened an ethics inquiry after 2 attorneys who'd attended the wedding filed formal complaints. The complaints didn't allege anything Victoria had done to them, they alleged conduct unbecoming of an officer of the court. The investigation was ongoing. On April 10th, a small item appeared in the Boston Globe's Legal Beat column, written by a reporter I recognized from Daniel's newsroom. Boston area attorney under investigation for alleged document fraud in 2020 real estate transaction. The Suffolk County DA's office confirmed the investigation is active, but declined to comment on specifics. The attorney, whose name has not been released, is reportedly connected to a prominent Boston legal family. No names. But in a community as insular as Boston's legal establishment, no names were needed. Everyone knew within hours. I received 11 text messages that week from people I hadn't heard from in years. Some were apologies, Some were expressions of support. A few were clearly fishing for gossip, which I ignored. The message that mattered most came from Jennifer Thompson at Becker Legal. She followed up her wedding night text with a formal email. Subject: sincere apologies and a professional inquiry page. I want to begin by apologizing properly. At the wedding, I made assumptions based on things Victoria had told me over the years. Watching what actually happened that night, watching how you handled yourself with such dignity under impossible circumstances, made me ashamed of my own credulity. I don't expect forgiveness, but I would like to offer something concrete. Our firm is renovating our conference floor, and we're looking for an interior designer who understands professionalism, discretion, and good taste. If you're interested, I'd love to discuss the project. Please let me know either way. And again, I'm sorry. Jennifer. I sat with that email for 3 days before responding. Part of me wanted to reject it, to refuse anything that came from Victoria's social circle. But another part recognized that Jennifer Thompson wasn't Victoria. She was someone who'd been lied to, who'd believed those lies, and who was now trying to make amends. I took the meeting. The project was substantial: a full redesign of 2 conference rooms and a reception area for a mid-sized law firm. Budget: $82,000. Timeline: 3 months. It was the largest contract I'd ever landed. By May, I'd received 2 more project inquiries from attorneys who'd been at the wedding. Word was spreading, not just about Victoria's downfall, but about my work. People who'd dismissed me as the Harrison daughter with the decorating hobby were suddenly curious about the Harrison daughter who'd stood her ground. I didn't trust all of them. I vetted every client carefully, asked pointed questions about how they'd heard about me, and turned down one project from someone who seemed a little too eager to pump me for information about Victoria's case. But slowly, carefully, I began to rebuild. Not just my business, my sense of who I was. The strangest development came in early May. I received a certified letter from a real estate attorney in Cape Cod, informing me that the 2020 sale of Eleanor's property was under legal review and that the current owners had been notified of potential title defects. Marcus explained what this meant. If the original sale was voided due to fraud, the buyers might have claims against Victoria for the purchase price. The property itself could potentially revert to Eleanor's estate. "It's complicated," he said, "and it could take years, but the wheels are turning." Victoria Harrison, who had spent her life accumulating status and property and social capital, was watching it all slip away. I won't pretend I didn't feel some satisfaction in that, but mostly I felt something closer to peace. Justice wasn't about revenge. It was about the world finally recognizing what was true. June 2024. 3 months after the wedding. I'm sitting on the balcony of my penthouse, watching the sun set over Boston Harbor. The sky is streaked with orange and pink, and the water reflects it all like scattered jewels. It's the kind of evening my grandmother always loved. Big skies, quiet moments, a glass of wine, and nowhere to be. She's here now, in fact. Eleanor comes every Sunday. I pick her up from Brookhaven in the morning, and we spend the day together. Sometimes we go to the Museum of Fine Arts. Sometimes we just sit here, on this balcony, and talk. Today, we've been talking about my father. "He called me," I tell her. "Yesterday." She raises an eyebrow. "And?" "He wanted to explain, to tell me his side of things." I swirl my wine. "He says he didn't know about the Cape Cod house. He says Victoria handled all the paperwork, and he just signed where she told him." Do you believe him? I think about it. Really think. I believe he didn't ask questions, I finally say. I believe he chose not to know. I believe he's been choosing not to know for 35 years about a lot of things. Eleanor nods slowly. And what did you tell him? I told him I needed time, that I wasn't ready to see him yet, that if he wanted a relationship with me, he'd have to earn it, not by explaining or apologizing, but by actually showing up, consistently, over time. She reaches over and squeezes my hand. That's a healthy boundary, sweetheart. We sit in comfortable silence for a while. The sunset deepens. Madison texted me, I add. Last week. I heard. She asked if I would call her. She said she wants to talk. And will you? I look out at the harbor, at the boats returning to their moorings, at the city lights beginning to flicker on. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. I pause. She knew, Grandma. Maybe not about the Cape Cod house, but about the pressure, the manipulation, the lies. She was there every time Victoria called me selfish or ungrateful. She never once defended me. She never once questioned what she was being told. That's true. If she wants to have a sister, she has to want to know the truth. She has to be willing to see who our mother really is. And I don't think she's there yet. I don't think she wants to be there. I take a breath. So I'm not closing the door forever. But I'm not opening it until she's ready to walk through it honestly. Eleanor smiles. A small, proud smile. You've learned something important, Paige. Something I wish I'd learned at your age. What's that? That love without respect isn't love, it's just habit. She looks at me with those clear, knowing eyes. You deserve both. I started therapy in April. My therapist's name is Dr. Carolyn Mitchell, and she specializes in family systems and boundary setting. Every Tuesday at 4, I sit in her office in Cambridge and talk about things I spent 32 years avoiding. It's hard. Some weeks it's exhausting. But it's also the most important thing I've ever done for myself. There's something else, too. His name is Ben, and he's an architect I met at a design conference in May. He has kind eyes and a terrible sense of direction and absolutely no idea who the Harrisons of Beacon Hill are. He likes me, for my work, my laugh, my habit of talking to plants. It's new, it's slow, it's the first time I've let someone in without worrying about what they might think of my family. My grandmother finishes her wine and sets the glass down. You know, she says, I've been thinking about what I want my legacy to be. You've already given me a legacy, I say, gesturing at the penthouse around us. Not the property. She shakes her head. I mean the other thing. The thing that matters. I wait. I spent too many years keeping the peace, she says. Staying quiet to avoid conflict, letting Victoria become who she became because confronting her was too painful. She looks at me steadily. I don't want that for you. I want you to speak the truth, even when it's hard. I want you to protect yourself, even when it feels selfish. I want you to know that being kind doesn't mean being silent. I feel tears prick my eyes. I'll remember. Good. She pats my hand. Now what's for dinner? All this emotion is making me hungry. I laugh, and the sound fills the evening air. This is my life now. A penthouse that's really mine. A grandmother who loves me. A business that's growing. Boundaries that are firm. A future I'm building myself. One honest choice at a time. If you're watching this, maybe you're in a situation where your family expects you to sacrifice yourself for their comfort. Maybe you've been told that setting limits is selfish. Maybe you're wondering if you're allowed to want more. You are. You're allowed. Being kind to yourself isn't the opposite of being kind to others. It's the foundation. Thank you for staying until the end. And if this story resonated with you, if it reminded you that you deserve respect, that your boundaries matter, that truth is worth telling, leave a comment. Tell me your story. I want to hear it. Take care of yourselves. Thank you so much for watching my story all the way through. If it helped you remember that you're worthy of respect, that saying no doesn't make you a bad person, then this was worth telling. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you want more stories about boundaries, family, and finding your way. Check the description for more videos like this one. And until next time, remember, protecting your peace is not a crime, it's a necessity. Take care, I'll see you soon.